Hello everyone and welcome back to Garage Time. My name's Tom and this week I'm just going to continue sanding, but there's a problem.
Garage Time.
The problem is I don't know when to stop. So as I said before, I'm new to the paint and body process and I'm learning as we go alongside with you, and I've learned from a lot of other YouTubers in fact. So this is the first time I've used these materials, first time I've used the paint system and the sanding system. Everything to me is pretty new. So I wanted to share with you the 3 things that I determined when it's time to stop. Okay, I've been sanding here on this side of the car and it's going pretty well, although I did have to stop here because I ran into this section right here is bare metal. I don't know if you can see, but this is the 2K primer, this is the epoxy primer, and this is bare metal. So that means that there's a low spot right here. You can still see some guide coat. There's a high spot right there. And then this is a very high spot because it has metal on it. So I can't sand this anymore. I know I need to stop. So here's an example where the guide coat is remaining. So this area here still needs more sanding. So that's one indicator. I've also wiped the entire car with the dry guide coat. And you know when to stop when you're sanding with the 400 or the 600 and the dry coat just goes away. You sand it off and that means it's nice and flat, everything looks good. All right, this is the side of the car that I put additional 2K primer on, the high build primer, and I've sanded this with 600 and it looks pretty nice. I'm gonna wet it down for you and just kind of show you how it looks when I think it's ready. Time to stop. And so the combination of the 600 grit sandpaper and just a little bit of water on the surface really lets you see the reflections. And so when I look at the side, I can see that it looks pretty good to me. Direction's even a little bit better when there's some lights. I'm gonna push the car outside, hopefully today if I can, just to sort of get an idea how nice it is. I can see the way the lights reflect across the gaps, and it looks pretty good to me. It's probably hard to see on camera, but I have used a flashlight and tried all kinds of different angles, and to me it looks like this passenger side is done, which I'm super excited about. I'm going to do some more wet sanding on the driver's side and kind of show you what it's like. Okay, I just want to give you a really quick recap of how I got to where I am at this particular stage on this quarter panel. This is the 2K high build primer. It was blocked with the very long block. Let me show you that. So I use this really long block. This is like almost, I think 30 inches, and it's really difficult to use it on this section because it's so curvy, but I definitely use this on the door. On these curvy sections, I use this slightly shorter block. This is 12 inches, and that's what I use around here, and then I have a round block the same length I use right there, and I use these blocks on the 220 grit. It cuts really fast through the primer, and that's what creates, I think, the level surface. And then on the higher grits, I go to smaller and smaller blocks. So now that I'm on 600, I am on a little 4-inch block, and it's very soft. This block is super flexible, and this is what I'm using for wet sanding. And it goes inside all these contours, and it's not gonna put lines in the panels where it's on a convex curve. It's not gonna just scrape lines into it, because it goes around all the contours. And so that's kind of my strategy. This is dry guide coat. I'm just, rubbing it on, not even very heavy. It doesn't take much at all. And like I said, this has already been sanded with 400, so it feels really smooth. And I'm just focusing on this quarter panel at the moment. I know this door is going to need more primer, so I'm just going to really focus on sort of this area and back, not really going into the gap. So all the guide coat that I rubbed on is now rubbed off. So that means that all the 400 grit scratches are now gone. And what's left is just the 600 grit scratches. And it seems pretty smooth. I mean, it feels really good. You can see here there's a different color in primer. I mean, this is the 2K primer. This is the epoxy primer. They're slightly different grays. So this looks bad, although according to the guide coat and how I look at it in the reflection, it's actually quite good. I may, when I shoot the door, just shoot this again with 2K primer just to make it all one color for the purpose of the base coat. But I'm really looking at this pretty carefully now since I think it's about done, and it looks pretty nice to me. I'm gonna open up the big garage door over here to get some extra light in, and I'm gonna water it down one more time and just kind of look at the reflections and see if I'm happy. So the reflections do look pretty nice. So you can see off into the distance some things that are out there in the street. And when you move your head, this is hard to tell on camera, but when you move your head, you can watch how the reflections change. And it looks to me to be really, really pretty nice. So when it looks that good, I stop. I'm pretty happy with the reflections, and the surface is 600 grit scratches. And you got to be a little careful with wet sanding. Sometimes I'll get a speck of something either on the rag or from the air, and you can hear it on the surface and it's like scratching. So you got to wash that away right away. And when the surface dries, I go over it with a shop light and make sure that everything I see is 600 grit scratches, because that's what the base coat goes directly on top of, is the 600 grit. And I just want to make sure that I didn't scratch it when I was doing the wet sanding, but I'm pretty careful with that. I can listen for it. I use a lot of water and wipe it down, wipe it down. But like this quarter is essentially ready. Like I said before, I need to put more primer on this driver's door. The roof is ready, the passenger side is ready. So my next step is to really drive my attention into the door jambs and these little gutter areas inside the deck lid area, those kind of things. So things are moving pretty well. I spent about 8 hours of sanding. I put those numbers down here. You know, I'll leave some unedited footage here at the end of this video if you just want to watch me sand. You know, my videos are typically highly edited, so I'll just leave a little bit of uncut stuff. You can just watch kind of the speed at which it goes. It's pretty slow, pretty tedious, but at least I'm seeing the end of the light. So thank you again for watching. I hope you're enjoying your holiday weeks, and we'll see you next week.